سلام و خوش اومدید به این شب از برنامه در این شبها. ممنون که این برنامه رو دنبال میکنید. بسیاری از ما که علاقمند به علم، علاقمند به نجوم و علاقمند به فضا هستیم، حتما در بخشی از دوران در واقع نوجوانی، جوانی یا حتی همین الان سودای سفر به فضا رو در سر داشتیم. ایده این که بتونیم از زمین دور بشیم و زمین رو از فراز جو فشرده‌ای که حافظ ماست و در واقع از ما محافظت میکنه ببینیم، بتونیم انحنای زمین رو ببینیم و قدم بر در واقع درگاه دشت پرستاره آسمان بذاریم. دلایل مختلفی برای این علاقه ما وجود داشته و وجود داره و واقعیت اینه که حتی با وجود این که در سالهای اخیر بخش خصوصی وارد حوزه سفرهای فضایی شده، اما اولا کماکان این تجربه برای بسیاری از ما غیر ممکنه به خاطر هزینه‌هاش و امکانات، و بخش دوم اینه که در نهایت فضاگردی تفاوت جدی با فضانوردی حرفه‌ای داره و شاید تصوری که ما از فضانوردی داریم فقط هنوز در دست گروه یا در اختیار گروه بسیار محدودی از نخبگان صنعت هوافضایی که میتونن پس از پشت سر گذاشتن دوره‌های مختلف در قالب فضانوردان حرفه‌ای مأموریت‌های جدی فضایی رو پیش ببرن. مهمون امشب من که علیرغم برنامه فشرده‌ای که داشت لطف کرد و دعوت که من رو پذیرفت که در این برنامه حضور پیدا کنه، متولد سال 1983 در آلمان غربی هست. بعد از اون به ایالات متحده مهاجرت کرد، در ایالت نیویورک ساکن شد و اونجا به مدرسه رفت. در دانشگاه MIT کارشناسی هوافضایی خودش رو گرفت و در دانشگاه تحصیلات تکمیلی ارتش در واقع کارشناسی ارشد خودش در رشته هوافضا رو اخذ کرد. بعد از اون به عنوان خلبان نظامی وارد ارتش شد و به خصوص در مأموریت‌های هلیکوپترهای سوپر کبرای AH-1W ساعت‌ها پرواز داشت. بعد از اون به عنوان تست پایلوت یا خلبانی که مأموریت‌های جدید یا هواپیماهای جدید رو میازماید با شرایط سخت، اونها رو تا حد و توان خودشون پیش میبره، به کار مشغول شدش. بیش از 150 مأموریت هوایی رو در سابقه خودش داره، بیش از 2000 ساعت پرواز با بیش از 25 مدل مختلف پرنده از جمله هلیکوپتر و هواپیما. در سال 2017 او پس از پشت سر گذاشتن بخش اول تمرینات خودش، امتحانات خودش، وارد برنامه انتخاب فضانورد ناسا شد و در سال 2020 به عنوان یکی از اعضای گروه 14 نفره کلاس تازه فضانوردان ناسا معرفی شد. اخیراً او به عنوان فرماندهی ماموریت اسپیس ایکس کرو 7 که در واقع بخشی از اکسپدیشن شماره 69 ایستگاه بین‌المللی فضایی هست انتخاب شده. او قرار هستش که سپتامبر سال 2023 با فرماندهی کپسول دراگون و ماموریت اسپیس ایکس رو بر عهده بگیره و به ایستگاه فضایی بره، ماموریتی که 180 روز به طول خواهد انجامید. او همچنین یکی از کسانی هست که احتمال خیلی زیاد در ماموریت آرتمیس و بازگشت به ماه حضور خواهد داشت و حتی احتمالاً در ماموریت سرنشیندار به مقصد مریخ او احتمال خیلی زیادی وجود داره که یکی از نخستین زنان تاریخ باشه که به ماه میره یا قدم بر سطح ماه میذاره. مهمان امروز من یاسمین مغبلی هست، فرمانده ماموریت اسپیس ایکس کرو 7. لطفاً به این مصاحبه توجه بفرمایید. یاسمین، خیلی ممنون از این که دعوت ما رو پذیرفتی و در این مصاحبه شرکت کردی. میدونی که اکثر ما زمانی که داشتیم بزرگ میشدیم تا حتی همین الان دوست داشتیم که فضانورد بشیم. خیلی از ماها به این مرحله نرسیدیم و در واقع در حد رویا برامون باقی موند. چه زمانی اولین بار احساس کردی که دوست داری که یک فضانورد بشی؟ آیا این هم برای تو هم یک در واقع رویای دوران کودکی بود؟ میدونم که تو خلبان جنگی هستی، قراره که یک فضانورد بشی. میتونی یه مقدار از داستان خودت رو برامون تعریف کنی؟
Can you tell us a little about your story?
Sure, absolutely. For me, it was also a childhood dream. It started in elementary school. Specifically, I remember in 6th grade, I did a book report on Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space, a cosmonaut. And for school, we got to dress up like the person we did the book report on. So I wore a spacesuit that my mom helped me make to school that day. And from then on, I wanted to be an astronaut. Of course, as a kid, it was more just something that seemed really exciting and cool and adventurous to do. And as I got older and learned more about what it meant, and I was lucky enough to get to go to space camp.
Yep.
And I also watched a shuttle launch at one point when I was a little older, and that just grew my love for it and made me want to do it even more. And I also realized fairly early on, I think around junior high school, 7th or 8th grade, that I wanted to join the military.
Mm-hmm.
We had a background of military history in my family in Iran. And I'd heard my grandfather speak about his time in the Navy. And so I realized I wanted to join the military as well. And I wanted to fly in the military, which worked out well in setting me up to become an astronaut. So after, finishing school, I went to college, to MIT, studied aerospace engineering for 4 years. And while I was there, between my junior and senior years, I went to officer candidate school for the Marine Corps. And so after I finished my senior year, I commissioned in the Marine Corps, and from there went to flight school and became a helicopter pilot, a Cobra pilot. And I did 3 deployments in that aircraft. And on my 3rd deployment, I applied to test pilot school. And that was something I also knew I wanted to do from a pretty young age, because I loved engineering and I loved flying, and this let me combine the 2 of those and test new, whether it be aircraft or systems for the Marine Corps before they went to the other pilots. So I loved being a test pilot. It really combined those 2 loves for me. And while I was a test pilot, I decided I finally would try for this dream I had since I was a young kid. And as you said, many people dream of it, and I thought, it's probably a long shot, but why not apply? If you don't apply, they you won't get accepted. So I applied and was lucky enough to get picked up in 2017 for this job, and it was absolutely a dream come true for me.
آیا این تجربه در واقع تمریناتی که پشت سر گذاشتی برای اینکه در واقع دوره فضانوردی رو طی کنی قابل مقایسه با تجربیاتی بود که در مورد خلبان آزمایشی داشتی؟ کار فوق العاده ماجراجویانه، اما قابل مقایسه هست؟
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. In some ways it's very similar, and in some ways it's very different. So first off, for both of those, training is very important. Exactly. And learning, it was an aircraft, now it's a spacecraft. Learning the systems of that and how to respond in case there are any sort of contingencies or emergencies is equally as important. You work with a team in both those jobs, so training together as a team is very important. One thing that's really different here is the diversity of what we have to learn. So as a pilot and as a test pilot, I was really focused and specialized in that field and what I did. Here, when you fly in a small crew and you have to sustain your environment. So
exactly,
you have to be the doctor, you have to be the maintainer, you have to be the scientist, you have to be a little bit of everything. So that is something that I really enjoy here, is you get to be a jack of all trades and learn a little bit about everything, because really you are it up there. You and your crewmates are it.
و اخیراً شما به عنوان فرمانده ماموریت اسپیس ایکس کرو 7 در واقع معرفی شد. فوق العاده هیجان انگیز، مدت طولانی رو در فضا و در ایستگاه فضایی سپری خواهی کردش. که میتونی یه مقدار بیشتر راجع به این ماموریت و اهدافش به ما بگی و اینکه در این ماموریت بیشتر از هر چیزی هیجان زده برای چه چیزی هستی؟
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, we'll be on Crew 7. There will be 4 of us. So right now, it's myself and Andy Mogensen, a Danish astronaut, will be the pilot, and we don't know who the 2 mission specialists are yet. But we will be flying, and we are expecting to spend about 6 months on the International Space Station, which I think the International Space Station is incredible. For those who don't know, it's an orbiting laboratory that is basically a satellite of the Earth now, flying a few hundred miles rather, above the Earth, where we conduct science and perform experiments. And we don't know yet exactly which experiments will be assigned to during our time, but just in the past, some of the ones I've seen are so interesting. One of my favorites is they have, on Earth, when you grow a culture of cells, they have to be two-dimensional. In space, because of the weightlessness, you can form them in 3 dimensions, which is really how tissues form in real life. And so they're more analogous to what we see in our human bodies. So I think that's really exciting. But one of the things I'm probably most excited about is looking back at Earth from space.
Exactly. I think that's the dream of many of us, that they had the chance to, see our planet from the outside, from the space, and that would be probably something that stay with you forever.
Yeah, I've heard many astronauts who have come back describe it, and they say it just shifts your whole perception of everything. When you see the Earth as beautiful and fragile as it is from space, and see the vastness of space around it. So I'm very much look forward to experiencing that.
As you mentioned, big part of the becoming an astronaut is تو مقداری راجع به برنامه تمرینات صحبت کردی و من میخوام بدونم که احتمال میتونی یه مقدار بیشتر در مورد اون برامون توضیح بدیم، به خاطر این بخشی از فعالیت هستش که اکثر مردم نمیبینن. این باید غیر از بخش تکنیکی شامل بخش روانشناسی و بقیه باشه. این دوره تمرینات فضانوردی به چه صورتیه؟ training program, but I wanted that if you can tell us a little more about the process, because as you said, it's not just the technical training, it should be psychological training, living together in it. What was this training look like? و آیا هیچ بخشی از این تمرینات بود که تو رو شوکه کنه که بگی که من انتظار نداشتم برای تمرینات فضانوردی لازمه که اینا رو یاد بگیرم؟
Right. So as you said, the training is very important, and it's continuous. We never stop training. So when we first come here, we start with an initial training program that's about 2 years. And there are a lot of different things we learn during that period. The Russian being one of them, because as we said, it's the International Space Station, and we're working with other international partners. So we learn Russian. We fly T-38 jets, and that, especially for our astronaut office is made up of people with very different backgrounds and experiences. So for those who aren't pilots or don't have other operational backgrounds, this gives them an opportunity to work together as a crew, and in a situation where there are real world consequences, and you need to be able to react quickly and appropriately. So that's really important. We also learn, as I said, the systems are very important. So learning the actual International Space Station and the propulsion systems, the life support, the communication, all of that sort of thing. And then one of my favorite parts was learning how to do the spacewalks. And that was something that was surprising for me, not in the sense that obviously I knew we would have to train that, but how difficult and how different it was. You watch astronauts do spacewalks and they make it look fairly easy. And it is not at all. You really, you're in your own spacecraft. The spacesuit is your own spacecraft. And everything you do, you have to learn to do differently, because as you move, every time you move with your hands, right? You're not walking with your feet, unless you talk about planetary spacewalk, but on the International Space Station, you're moving with your hands. And every time you grip your hands, you're fighting the pressure of the suit, because you need to be pressurized in order for us to stay alive. And so every time you do that, it's like you're gripping a stress ball. And it was really surprising to me how difficult it was, and how much I need to learn to move within the suit. You have to move in a way that the suit rotates and how its joints move. That was probably one of the most surprising parts for me, was how difficult that was to learn.
Yeah. And این حتی سوال پرسیدنش هم برای من هیجان انگیزه. شما عضو در واقع گروهی از فضانوردان هستید که به ماه برمیگردید در قالب پروژه آرتمیس و حتی احتمالاً در میان اون کاندیداهایی هستید که در نخستین سفر انسان به مریخ حضور دارن. حتی گفتنش هم هیجان انگیزه و من نمیدونم تو چطوری دارید اینو در واقع باهاش کنار میای، چون من در راجبش حرف میزنم هیجان زده میشم. وای به حال تو. بنابراین تو جزء در واقع کسانی هستی که به ماه برمیگردی و احتمالاً جزء نخستین زنانی هستی که به ماه یا بر سطح ماه قدم خواهی گذاشتش و میخواستم در نظر تو بدونم به عنوان یک فضانوردی که این چشمانداز رو داره، اهمیت برگشتن به ماه و احتمالاً موندن در اون چی هستش. ما یه بار اونجا رفتیم، پرچم زدیم و برگشتیم، اونو رها کردیم. اهمیت برگشت دوبارش چی هست؟
Yeah, so I think, as you said, we have gone to the moon before, but we did it in a very different way than we're planning to go this time. And we went mostly to, all the Apollo missions were to the equatorial regions of the moon. Exactly. And this time we were looking to go to the south lunar pole because of what we think we'll find there in the form of ice. Water in the form of ice. And what I think is probably most important about going and setting up a sustaining presence on the moon, where we learn to set up a habitat, work on the moon, live on the moon, is really setting us up for success to go to Mars. Because you think about just saying it, like you said, going to Mars and sending humans there, it still sounds like something out of science fiction to me, and I can't believe that we're talking about doing this, in our lifetimes. And so, but the moon is several hundred.
Not only we are talking about that, you're probably going to be one of those.
Yes, and I also can't comprehend that at this point. But the moon is several hundred thousand miles away. Mars is several 100 million miles away at its closest. And so practicing being able to use the resources that are on a planetary body to sustain us, using those for fuel, using those for breathing, practicing the operations of, when we talk about the moon, it's only a couple days missions away, and the comm delay is only a few seconds. Yep. You talk about Mars, it's several months away and several minutes of comm delay. And so we need to have all those operational practices, the technologies down and well-oiled before we go to Mars. And I think that is one of the most important parts about going back to the moon and setting up a sustaining presence there. And I just think human exploration has always been important and will continue to be important. We always learn new things, and just in the process of pushing boundaries, develop new technologies that end up helping us in other aspects of life. And so I think it's incredibly important that we continue to explore further than we have.
سوال بعدی نمیدونم که میتونی جواب بدی یا نه، ولی میخواستم بدونم که آیا برنامه هنوز تا موقع راه زیادی داریم، ولی آیا تمرینات لازم برای سفر به ماه و ماموریت آرتمیس آغاز شده یا اینکه نه این هنوز در آینده قرار داره؟
Right, so we haven't named specific crews to specific missions yet. As you probably know, the Artemis 1 mission we're looking to launch in a few months here, and that will be the first uncrewed mission to go around the moon. And following that will be Artemis 2, which is the first crewed mission that will go around the moon. And so I think probably sometime after Artemis 1 flies, we'll start seeing crew assigned and training for Artemis 2 missions. But I did, before I was assigned to this mission, I was working on the lunar lander program, the human landing system. So I was closely tied into helping to develop those training programs and determine what do we need to train astronauts for these very difficult and challenging missions, and landing on the lunar South Pole, which is quite a bit more challenging with the sun angles and the terrain there than it was landing in the equatorial region. So training will be a very huge part of success for those missions.
میدونم سرت خیلی شلوغه و برنامه فشرده‌ای داری، اما به عنوان آخرین سوال، به طور تاریخی چالش‌های بیشتری در مقابل زنان وجود داشته برای فعالیت در حوزه‌های علوم، تکنولوژی، ریاضیات، مهندسی، هوانوردی و فضانوردی. تو خیلی از اینها رو پشت سر گذاشتی و به چهره الهام بخشی برای خیلی از افراد در سراسر دنیا تبدیل شدی. میخوام بدونم که آیا توصیه یا پیامی برای نسل جوان، به خصوص دختران، به خصوص در کشورهایی مثل ایران که جمعیت فارسی صحبت کن داری که هنوز با این چالش‌ها و با این سختی‌ها دست به گریبان هستن، اما کماکان مایلند که رویاهای خودشون رو دنبال بکنن؟
Sure, absolutely. I think there are several things I could say. One of the most important, I think, is if you know you want to do something and you know that thing is worth it, there's no doubt it will be challenging and there's no doubt it will be hard. And I think sometimes people expect the thing that they were meant to do to be easy. I have failed so many times leading up to this point. And had I stopped there, that would have been the end, right? So I think one of the most important things is to know you will fail. It's inevitable. If you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. And to know that you, again, if you know it's worth it and you really want to do this thing, just keep trying, ask for help, try different techniques. And something that's also really important is who you surround yourself with. I was lucky. I had a very supportive family. So, you don't necessarily get to choose your family. I was lucky enough to be born into a family that always supported me doing these things. But you do get to choose your friends and who you surround yourself with. So choose people who not only support and encourage you, but also challenge you to be your best. I think that's really important. And the final thing I will say is you do belong in these fields, especially for the girls and the women out there. If you question that, I questioned that for a long time when I looked around and saw predominantly males around me. But you do belong and we do need you. So please push through those challenges because we need you.
خیلی ممنون یاسمین. امیدوارم که ماموریت فوق‌العاده موفقی داشته باشی. امیدوارم زمانی که برگشتی فرصتی بشه که یه بار دیگه با هم صحبت بکنیم و درباره تجربت صحبت بکنیم. یک بار دیگه تبریک میگم بابت فرماندهی ماموریت در واقع اسپیس ایکس کرو 7
and Godspeed Commander.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
یک بار دیگه تشکر میکنم از فرمانده مقبلی که در واقع این فرصت گفتگو رو فراهم کرده، همینطور از دفتر روابط عمومی ناسا که امکان انجام این مصاحبه رو فراهم کرد. امیدوارم که اگر از این مصاحبه و برنامه‌های مشابه لذت برده باشید، اون رو به دوستانتون معرفی بکنید، اون رو به دیگرانی که دستشون نمیرسه برسونید. لطفا مراقب خودتون باشید و تا برنامه آینده و شبی دیگر از در این شب‌ها سلامت و سالم باشید. خدا نگهدار.